Miss Sophia, we're live. The floor is yours. Miss Sophia, can you hear me? Hello, Miss Sophia, can you hear me?
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please start. We are live.
Thank you so much. It is with great respect and shared commitment that we welcome you to the Women Ascension's Heritage and Cultural Preservation series. Today, we will explore the vibrant world of food and traditional cuisines, and we will celebrate the deep cultural roots and stories carried through our meals, from the ingredients we choose to the techniques we inherit. I am Miss Akumu Sophia from Uganda. I am an educator from the northern part of Uganda with over 9 years of experience in teaching English language and literature. I am passionate about fostering learning, advancing gender equality, and empowering communities. I am also the founder of the PAMA Education Initiative, which works to expand access to education and support women's empowerment. I'm delighted to be here today, and I look forward to moderating this session. I would like to introduce Women Ascension for our new joiners. Women Ascension is a movement rooted in purpose. It is a global initiative built on the belief that every woman can transform communities, industries, and futures. With a presence in over 134 countries and a multidisciplinary structure spanning 10 departments from STEM and climate actions to peace building and media. It offers a space where women from all walks of life can lead, learn, and lift others. At its heart, Women Ascension isn't just about leadership. It's about belonging. It's about creating pathways for women to step into their potentials while staying grounded in empathy, collaboration, and service. The Women Ascension 1 Million Leadership Program 2030 is a visionary global initiative aimed to cultivate inclusive, ethical, and trauma-informed leadership across sectors of healthcare, education, science, policy, and community development, with the vision to empower 1 million women, youth leaders, and change makers by the year 2030, with the tools to lead with empathy, resilience, and impact aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. What makes OMLF unique? In this program, our fellows rotate through departments, gaining hands-on experience in advocacy, digital literacy, policy, and storytelling. The curriculum is deeply aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially gender equality, education, climate resilience, and peace. Mentorship and community are central fellows supported by a global network of change makers who believe in leading with integrity and vision. This program doesn't promise instant success. Instead, it offers something more meaningful: the tools to recognize opportunities, the courage to act, and the wisdom to serve. Women Ascension Department of Heritage and Cultural Preservation is dedicated to safeguarding cultural traditions, amplifying women's voices in heritage practices, and ensuring that the richness of our collective identity is passed on to future generations. Through research, advocacy, and community engagement, we strive to preserve cultural legacies while promoting inclusivity, empowerment, and sustainable development. Now, traditional cuisines is more than nourishment. It's a living archive of heritage, identity, and community. Today, we will reflect on how food traditions connect generations, strengthen family bonds, and contribute to sustainable food security. Let's honor the wisdom of indigenous food knowledge, embrace the richness of regional flavors, and discover how preserving culinary heritage can empower women and communities across the globe. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker for today's essential talk, Mr. Foka Clarence Liiwong. He is a dedicated clergy and pastor in the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, blending faith leadership with a strong commitment to public health and psychosocial well-being. Currently a PhD candidate in public health at Azteca University, Mexico. He brings an interdisciplinary perspective to the intersection of healthcare, counseling, and ministry. He is actively engaged in hospital chaplaincy. He provides spiritual care and psychosocial counseling to patients and families, fostering resilience and hope in times of vulnerability. As an academic writer, he has published articles in the field of mental health, advancing knowledge and dialogue around psychosocial support and ethical practice. With his experience in public speaking, he addresses diverse audience on topics spanning mental health, counseling, faith, ethics, and public health, inspiring communities to embrace holistic well-being. He is deeply committed to local cultural preservation, ensuring that traditional values and community identity remain integral to modern approaches in counseling and ministry. Let me take this opportunity to welcome Reverend Foka Clarence Liiwong. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Sophia. That was a great one. I'm privileged to be a presenter as we begin this session of cultural heritage. And this time of sharing, I want us to be very active in listening and also contributing, because when we talk about food and traditional cuisine, it is not something that is very peculiar to a particular set of people. In Africa, we have just a lot of food and traditional cuisine, which we will be looking today at the regional level. I want to also thank Women Ascension for accepting that I be a speaker in these very sessions of cultural heritage and its preservation. We will go right away. We have food and traditional cuisine. And in this presentation, we will be exploring the rich heritage, history, and cultural identity that is behind every traditional cuisine from the different regions in Africa. And we will try to understand how these food traditions are passed from generation to generation We will highlight the role of local ingredients and spices in cooking and the techniques that are used in cooking and how these techniques and their customs shape authentic dishes. And we'll also look at how traditional cuisine contributes to nutrition, sustainability, and food security in this modern society. And we will end by looking at how we can encourage appreciation and preservation of this indigenous food knowledge while striving to embrace new innovations that keeps traditions alive. We know that traditional cuisines across Africa reflect thousands of years of history, migration, trade, agriculture, spirituality, and cultural identity. And in Africa, we have about 54 nations, and cuisine is just not about sustenance. It is much more than that. To the African person, his traditional cuisine is a way of life, a means of storytelling, and a bridge that links generations. And African food culture and traditions are deeply intertwined with a lot of rituals, a lot of festivals, and everyday life. And when you look at this, it offers you a glimpse into the soul of a people, the African people, who honor their heritage through shared experience of food. Now, we are going to look at the regions in Africa, and we'll begin with North Africa, where we have countries like Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Sudan. And their historical influences comes from indigenous wheat that is cultivated and used methods of preserving food by drying it and fermenting. And they have the Arab Islamic influence, which came in the course of history to introduce spices, to introduce dates, to introduce citrus and cooking styles like we have slow braising. And then we have the Ottoman Empire that also came in and brought pastries into their culture. We have the Mediterranean contact that came in, and olive oil was introduced, grapes came in, and seafood dishes expanded due to the Roman and Greek presence. Now, what does the traditional cuisine in North Africa signify in their culture? Now, in North Africa, they lay strong emphasis on hospitality. Foods like mint tea and couscous symbolize generosity for them. That is why when you enter a North African home, the first thing you're offered is tea, and most of the times it is mint tea. And then they have spices such as cumin, cinnamon, saffron, which according to their traditional culture of cuisine reflect centuries-old trading culture. So they used these things, saffron, cinnamon, cumin, which are spices, to do trade by barter. And then their communal eating reinforces family and religious bonds, especially during the Ramadan period. Then we have the second is the West African region, where you have countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. Now, in the ancient empires, especially like in Mali, and the Songhai cultivated millet and sorghum. Now, indigenous crops in this region are yams, okra, black-eyed peas, and the fonio. Now, trans-Saharan trade across history brought spices to West Africa, brought rice, and brought new cooking techniques like boiling, because they were mostly used to sun drying, smoking, and steaming. Then the Atlantic trade era also introduced chili peppers, cassava, maize, and peanuts from the Americas. And these cassava, maize, and peanuts are now a core ingredients in West Africa. Now, their cultural identity of their traditional cuisine, you know, they have, especially in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire, they have this egusi and granite soup, which does not miss from a household meal, and it represents to them communal living and shared resources. And Especially in Ghana and Nigeria, food is deeply tied to rites of passage, weddings, and festivals. In Nigeria, we have the Yam Festival, which is a very, very important feast for them. When yams are being harvested and kept at a certain point in time, they do carry out the Yam Festival. And there are particular foods that are eaten at weddings. If they go for a wedding and they don't see those particular dishes, and the way the dishes too are served says a lot. Dishes like jollof rice have become symbols of national pride, especially in Senegal when it is joined with seafood such as fish and prawns. Then there is also the heavy use of chili and bold flavors, which reflect the region's energetic cultural expressions. East Africa. In East Africa, we have countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda. And here they have the cattle culture, milk, ghee, and meat. And in the Ethiopian highlands, they have ancient cultivation of teff, resulting in injera, one kind of ingredient that is very, very common to Ethiopia. And in the Swahili coast, which was influenced by Arab traders, sailors from Persia, merchants from India, and Portuguese explorers, this led to the bringing of some spices into this region, like curries, coconut-based dishes, and biryani. Now, the cultural identity in this region is that East Africa does much of agro-pastoral life, and cattle are a major cultural symbol for them. And in the Ethiopia, their cuisine reflects Orthodox Christian fasting traditions, shaping vegetarian dishes. So in Ethiopia, most of their dishes are vegetarian dishes. In the Swahili cuisine, it symbolizes a rich maritime identity, blending Africa, Arabia, and India because of the influences of these Arab traders, Persian sailors, Indian merchants, and Portuguese explorers. Then we have the fourth region, which is the Central Africa countries, Congo, Cameroon, where I come from, Gabon, DR Congo, and Central African Republic. Now, this region is a rainforest, and you have produce such as plantains, cassava, and peanuts, and they have minimal pre-colonial external contact, which helped to preserve many indigenous cooking techniques. And later on, the European influence came in and introduced some new vegetables, introduced beer, and introduced bread. Now, in the Central Africa, emphasis on traditional methods like smoking, wrapping of food in leaves, and boiling is very, very important. And there is communal cooking and eating, which plays a major role in village identity, especially during feasts such as naming ceremonies, especially in Cameroon and DR Congo, weddings in Cameroon, DR Congo, and all that. Then their staple food in this particular region is mostly fufu and saka saka, which reflect long-standing cultural continuity, especially for Central Africa, Congo, Cameroon, and Gabon. Now we have the fifth region, which is the Southern Africa, and countries such as South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, and Zambia. Now, in their history, they had the Khoisan influence, they had European colonization, and the Bantu migration. Now, the Khoisan influence brought in forage foods, root vegetables, and wild game, like onions, ginger, beetroots. Then Bantu migration introduced sorghum, millet, and various methods for fermenting porridge. Now, Indian laborers came in and introduced curries, especially in South Africa. Now, the cultural identity in this region is the barbecue, they call it the braai, which is a major cultural symbol of unity and community. Then there is the maize porridge, either they call it pap or sima, which ties many ethnic groups together. And for the Southern African, food reflects resilience and adaptation through colonialism and apartheid. And this has really shaped the culinary life of the Southern Africans. Now, away from these 5 regions, the historical influences and cultural identity, we now look at how food traditions are passed across generations. Now, one thing we need to note is that these various regions have their various traditional meals. Some are considered as national meals, national traditional meals, like in Senegal, while in some other countries where they have many ethnic groups, it is a bit difficult to have a national meal. Now, food traditions are passed down through generations in Africa. Primarily, you have it through hands-on learning and storytelling within families. We have ceremonial and social gatherings and the preservation of traditional cooking techniques. Now, the family and community helps to transmit these food traditions through direct teaching. And in direct teaching, the younger generations learn directly from the elders who pass down recipes, cooking methods, and the stories behind those cooking methods or the stories behind those recipes. Then we have storytelling. Now, recipes are often accompanied by either oral histories that explain their origins and cultural significance, reinforcing their importance. And then we have daily life. Now, everyday activity like cooking meals together serve as a primary method for passing on culinary skills and customs. Then we have the social and ceremonial events. Now, special foods are prepared for festivals, ceremonies, holidays, strengthening community bonds and linking the present to the past. Then another method through which food traditions are passed across generations is the culinary techniques and ingredients. And in culinary techniques and ingredients, we have time-honored methods, that is some specific skills like grinding, pounding, and fermenting are passed down as a core part of the cultural identity and are integral to authentic dishes. For example, there are some spices that must be ground using maybe the hand stone. There are some certain things that must be pounded using the mortar and the pestle. And the parents and grandparents make sure they inform the younger generation that this is how it is supposed to be done, so that you preserve the aroma, you preserve the taste, and you preserve the culture. Then we have the next under culinary techniques and ingredients, which is knowledge of local resources. Now, elders will always teach the younger people about indigenous ingredients, such as maybe edible wild leaves and how to prepare them, a skill that is crucial for survival and tradition. And then we have the cooking methods, techniques like slow cooking, open fire, grilling are preserved and used for specific dishes, and this helps to maintain community in the past. We also have other methods such as smoking, sun drying, and we also have roasting. There are many of those foods that are most enjoyed when they are roasted. Now, we look at how local ingredients and some cooking techniques shape authentic dishes. Now, you'll agree with me that there are some particular foods that when you cook in a pot, some of our mothers and fathers will refuse to eat. But when you cook them in leaves, you tie them in leaves and maybe just bake them in the fire, they will have a different taste. So local ingredients, cooking techniques, and cultural customs are very foundational elements that shape authentic African cuisine. And this helps to reflect the continent's diverse geography, the continent's diverse history, and its traditions. You have local ingredients like cassava, cocoyams, grains such as maize, millet. We have beans. They provide staple bases, while traditional methods such as slow cooking, baking in leaves, roasting, and one-pot meals create unique textures and flavors. Now, cultural customs, from communal eating to the significance of specific ingredients, are woven into recipes, and this helps to preserve the heritage and also helps to reinforce community identity. Now, a variety of spices are always used to create great flavor in the traditional cuisine. Spices such as black pepper, white pepper, bay leaf, cumin, ginger, garlic, and others are used to spice food, while some are also used as medicinal in some particular food dishes. Other traditional foods cannot be prepared without the presence of a particular spice. If you prepare that particular food without that particular spice, then it is not traditional anymore. And we have many of such foods, especially in Cameroon, that you must use some particular spice to prepare that particular food. Now, how can traditional cuisine contribute to nutrition, sustainability, and food security in this modern society? You know, most traditional diets rely on whole foods, grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, with smoked meats or fish. And when we talk about whole grains, we know about brown rice, sorghum, millet, fermented foods. We have yogurt, gari, kenke, leafy vegetables such as huckleberry, bitter leaf, legumes. You have beans and bambara nuts and all that. And all these are rich in vitamins and minerals. They have essential fatty acids, and they are also rich in fiber, which improves digestive health. And all these foods also have slow release carbohydrates, which prevent spikes in blood sugars. Now, when many of our relatives have suffer from diabetes, whether type 1, type 2, most of them are always given a kind of diet that they should follow. And that is based on our traditional cuisines. Balanced food combinations. We are looking at how traditional cuisine contributes to nutrition, sustainability, and food security in modern societies. So the first is, how does it contribute to nutrition? The first thing is that there is balanced food combinations. Traditional dishes often pair food strategically for better nutrition. For example, there is the beans and maize combination. There is the cocoyam and beans combination. There is the ugali and nyamachoma from Kenya, which is also a good combination that offers a balanced diet. And vegetables are cooked with natural palm oil, which improves absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. This was before the advent of vegetable oil, what we call in Cameroon groundnut oil. Now, there is a low risk of diet-related diseases if we maintain our traditional cuisine consumption. Traditional diets tend to reduce obesity. They also tend to reduce diabetes, hypertension, and heart diseases. So we discover that it is only when some people in African societies start eating junk food that they start having most of these diseases. Now, how does traditional cuisine contribute to sustainability? Now, traditional cuisines often use local and seasonal ingredients. And when they use these local and seasonal ingredients, it reduces carbon footprint, it reduces transportation cost, and it reduces the dependency of the local people on imported foods. How the second aspect of contribution to sustainability is the promotion of biodiversity. Indigenous crops like cassava, cocoyam, and the other vegetables like bitter leaf, huckleberry, and some wild leaves like eru are hardy crops. And these are drought resistant, which means you will see them during even dry periods. And because they are drought resistant, they get adapted to local soil and climates. And this biodiversity now comes to strengthen some resilience against climate change. The next is that there is minimization of food waste. Traditional cooking methods from sun drying fish to fermenting, smoking, and grinding extend shelf life and reduce spoilage. Now, let me just take an example. In these modern times, we have fridges that have come around. People hardly sun dry food, people hardly ferment food, or people hardly smoke food anymore. So they just carry the fresh food and put in the freezers. And when they put in the freezers, normally when it freezes and stays there for long, it loses its texture, loses its taste, and all that. So traditional cooking methods will minimize food waste. You smoke, you can store for long. You ferment, you can store for long. You sun dry, you can store for long. And when you grind, you can also store for long. The next thing is that it supports eco-friendly farming practices. When we rely on traditional food cuisine and activities, it supports eco-friendly farming practices because many of our agricultural systems in our traditional settings rely on mixed cropping, small-scale farming, and because there is this mixed cropping and small-scale farming, definitely we use organic fertilizers such as animal manure and compost, especially in those traditions that are also keeping cattle and other animals. How does traditional food cuisine contribute to food security? Now, food security improves when communities can maintain indigenous knowledge about their food. They can encourage community resilience, grow and rely on local foods. And if the communities grow and rely on local foods, then it will reduce vulnerability to the global market shocks. You know, you are not expecting that there should be maybe a price reduction in the particular food in the global market before you get to use it. No, because you are growing your own local food and you're relying on it, you will not have that global market shock. You will not have issue with price fluctuations and you will not have issues with supply chain crisis. So you will always have your food available at the time you want. And some traditional staple ingredients will provide food even under harsh climatic conditions, as we earlier mentioned, those who are adapted to drought. The next thing is that it will maintain indigenous knowledge. Traditional culinary knowledge includes crop rotation, soil fertility management, seed preservation, and food preservation techniques. Normally, our mothers, when they harvest their grains, they take time. They do dry the grains, either sun, and then what they do is they select the best grains and preserve them for the next planting season. So this helps them to maintain indigenous knowledge. And these skills help to keep food systems functional even during a crisis. The next thing is that they encourage community resilience. Traditional foods will always support local markets. It will also support farmer livelihoods and rural economies, and this will help to strengthen the entire food ecosystem. Now, I hope I am not too fast. Are we there?
You are perfect. Please carry on.
Thank you very much. So how can we encourage appreciation and preservation of indigenous food knowledge while still embracing innovation that comes to help keep traditions alive? Now, encouraging appreciation and preservation of indigenous food knowledge while embracing innovation requires a balanced, community-centered approach. And we have some practical and impactful ways to achieve this. The first is we need to promote education and storytelling. Promote education and storytelling. And what do we do in this aspect? We try to integrate indigenous food knowledge into schools. We try to document elders' knowledge, and we try to use media and digital platforms. Now, integrating indigenous food knowledge into schools, we will try to teach, or we should teach about local crops, teach about traditional dishes and their cultural meanings to children in schools. And then we should even include cooking classes using indigenous ingredients. Now, documenting elders' knowledge, what we need to do is we record recipes, techniques, farming practices, and food rituals. And then we encourage community storytelling events, food festivals, and heritage days. Then the use of media and digital platforms here, simply we try to create short videos, podcasts, and online recipes showcasing traditional dishes. We can see this on many Africans' YouTube channels and Facebook pages. They try to keep this particular culture by educating the community on some particular traditional dishes and their preparation methods. And then we engage influencers and chefs to talk about indigenous foods. Now, the next is to support farmers and local food systems. Now, how do we support farmers and local food systems? First, we create market opportunities, encourage agriology, and also strengthen local agriculture. Now, for us to strengthen local agriculture, we need to provide incentives for growing indigenous crops like millet, plantains, cassava, eru, cocoyams, bitter leaf, and all of that. And providing these incentives, we should make sure that we do not give the people chemical fertilizers, because it already kills the natural state of these particular ingredients. Then creating market opportunities. We should try to bring farmers markets, try to maybe even create some particular markets only to feature indigenous foods, indigenous spices, indigenous ingredients. And then we bring in some value-added products, such as processed cassava into cassava flour, dried vegetables, either sun-dried or smoked meats and fish, spiced oils, and herbal teas. I know there are some markets in some countries where when you go there, there is a particular side of the market where you go there to see only these traditional spices and other things. Now, we try to also encourage agriology, which is we promote eco-friendly traditional farming methods that maintain soil fertility and biodiversity. No use of chemical fertilizers, which will in turn cause soil leaching, which will in turn reduce soil fertility and all that. Then the next way we can encourage appreciation and preservation of indigenous food knowledge is by celebrating indigenous food and in modern spaces. For example, create festivals like in Nigeria, we have the Yam Festival. We can also create food museums and exhibitions, and we can create heritage restaurants and pop-up events. You create modern spaces for traditional food with storytelling menus. You know, you showcase indigenous ingredients, tools, and culinary history. I know of a heritage restaurant in my country that serves only indigenous food. They serve only indigenous food, and they serve this food not on modern plates. The foods are served on either plantain or banana leaves or on wooden carved utensils, and they are eaten with hand, not with modern spoons and fork and knives. That is a heritage restaurant, and many people love to go there because of the aura that they get when they go there. And in this particular heritage restaurant, they don't sell beer. What they sell there is natural palm wine that is gotten from the palm tree, or raffia wine that is gotten from the raffia palm. Now, the next way we can encourage participation is to foster innovation without losing authenticity. And how can we foster innovation without losing authenticity? One, we can use technology to improve safety and efficiency of food. We can develop fusion recipes respectfully, and we can also modernize preparation and presentation, not the identity. Not the identity. Because we are having a generation that is thinking way out of the box when it comes to indigenous foods. You can use modern cooking tools and techniques, but you try to keep the original flavors. You try to maintain the ingredients in that particular dish. And for example, you can still roast your plantains and beans, and you serve it in a gourmet style, but it is still rooted in tradition. Now you combine indigenous ingredients with global culinary skills without overshadowing the original dish. So what do we do here? For example, you can still do your cocoyam chips with modern sauces. You can still do your millet pancakes with fruit toppings, but do not destroy the recipe. Then, use of technology. How can we use technology to improve safety and efficiency? Technology to improve safety and efficiency. You know, there are advanced drying methods now. There are packaging methods and preservation methods that can extend shelf life while maintaining the authenticity of this particular spice or the particular ingredient. The next thing we do is to encourage youth involvement. And how do we encourage youth involvement? Either by bringing up entrepreneurship programs, or you bring up some culinary competitions with traditional themes. I think there is a TV program in Nigeria that is dedicated to this culinary competition with traditional themes. And here you motivate young chefs to reinterpret or showcase indigenous dishes. You include awards for the best innovation using indigenous ingredients. And for entrepreneurship, you can train youths to produce and sell indigenous food products. You can teach them branding, packaging, and e-commerce skills of indigenous food products. And then, the last but not the least, we ensure community ownership. Community ownership is very, very important. If there is no community ownership, then we may not even be able to encourage youth involvement. If there is no community ownership, we may not even be able to foster innovation without losing authenticity. We will not be able to even try to support farmers and local food systems. So, how do we ensure community ownership? We should respect the cultural context, and we should share economic benefits. Innovation should not commercialize away our indigenous identity. Innovation should not commercialize away our indigenous identity. We should keep communities involved in recipe adaptation, product development, branding, knowledge documentation. And in sharing economic benefits, we should ensure that farmers and cultural custodians benefit from this commercialization, but not just companies. They should benefit from the commercialization. And even if we are doing the commercialization, we should not commercialize away our indigenous identity. All in all, we know that our African region has a lot of diverse cuisines, ranging from North Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, West Africa. There are many countries in Africa, 54 in total, and we have close to 200 plus ethnic groups. Only in Cameroon, We have about 150 plus ethnic groups in Cameroon, and each ethnic group has her own particular traditional dish that they hold in high esteem. And we can be able to foster this if we try as much as possible to respect each and everyone's traditional culinary dishes. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, sir, for explaining a very essential topic which our generation nowadays are forgetting. I really liked that you have explained the different aspects of thing that we need to consider. So there is a question by a candidate. He's asking, what Nigerian dish reminds you most of home and why? Can you hear me?
didn't get that.
So there's a candidate. He's asking that he has lived in his childhood in Africa and in different countries, and today he's happy to know about this childhood cuisine which he still loves. So he's asking about a Nigerian dish that reminds you most of your home, and why?
A dish that reminds me of my home.
Yes, and why?
And why?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In my particular context, I have there are two dishes that I like, and one weird thing about it is that I love the dishes when they are not prepared fresh because of the spices that are used in those dishes. And when these spices are used in those dishes, when the food stays till the next day, it has a more compelling and appealing aroma. And that is what we call ekwang. There is ekwang, and ekwang is grated cocoyams, and it is wrapped in cocoyam leaves. You grate the cocoyams, you wrap in cocoyam leaves, and then you prepare with palm oil, and there are particular spices that you put in this particular meal, ekwang. And if you don't put some particular spice in, then they will tell you that you have not prepared ekwang. You have prepared for something else. And then there is another food, which is ero. Ero. Now, ero is made from a wild leaf that is very hard, and so you must prepare it with another leaf that will help to soften it. In our context, we use the soft leaf known as water leaf, but some people use spinach because spinach will also help to soften it. And I like this particular food when it has stayed till the next day. The aroma in it becomes very, very different, very compelling, and very appetizing. And you can eat the ero either with cassava fufu or cassava flakes, what we call in Cameroon gari, and in Nigeria gari. We can use any other fufu to eat it with it. So those are my two most compelling dishes in my Cameroonian context.
Thank you, sir, for giving answer with a very valid explanation. So the same candidate is asking that if you could invite the whole world to try one Nigerian snack, what would it be?
If I could invite
the whole world to try a Nigerian snack, so what it would be?
a Nigerian snack, you know, I would go for there is what we call in Nigeria, I've forgotten the name, but they prepare it with coconut and cassava. They prepare it with coconut and cassava, and it is very, very tasty. And then they add a little bit of palm oil in it. I've forgotten the name of that particular snack. When I remember, I'll drop it in the comment section.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Sir, I wanted to ask that, like, which is the one of the most famous fermented product, like fermented food in your Africa? Because in our India, it is usually a beverage on which I have worked. So I was just wanting to know that how, if you have any knowledge about any traditionally fermented food on that.
Yes. In my country, for example, in my country, we have fermented, one of the most common fermented product is cassava, which they ferment for days. It gets soft, then they mash it or they pound it, and then they wash it and collect the paste to prepare what we call water fufu. That's fufu. That is the most fermented, the highest fermented product here in Cameroon. And it is also the same in Nigeria and Ghana. And Cameroon even does and exports it just so much. Cameroon exports water fufu just so much. And at times when they ferment it, if it is not for home consumption, they will dry the paste and make it in a powder form. And that one can stay for a longer period of time. And most at times it is this dried part of it that is exported out of Cameroon, because it
Yes,
is
sir.
less, yeah, it is less heavy and can stay for a longer period of time than the wet.
Yes, sir. Nowadays, it is a technology that you can get it lyophilize or deep freeze, and then you can just have that sachet in the water, and it will have the same consistency, taste, and everything. So thank you so much for putting light on that. So another candidate is asking, are there regional differences in food across the country?
Yes, there are some differences in foods across the country. A great difference, because like I mentioned earlier, in Cameroon, we have more than 150 ethnic groups in Cameroon alone. And so each ethnic group will have its own food or delicacy. And even if two ethnic groups have the same delicacy, at times the preparation method is totally different. It's totally different. Like, for example, in my tribe, where I come from in the Salt-land, we have what we call our traditional dish is fufu corn, which is made from maize, ground maize, and then you cook it to fufu. And then we have huckleberry, and we have chicken, which is smoked and then cooked only in palm oil with only salt and pepper. Now that is kati kati. But in another community, we call it where you have the Babanki people, the Babanki and the Kom people, they also have the same food as their traditional food, fufu corn and huckleberry and kati kati. But the way they prepare their own kati kati is different from our own way of preparing kati kati. They only roast their own fowl. They roast it and then churn it now in palm oil with salt and pepper. So they don't cook their own fowl. But for us, we cook our own fowl and put with a palm oil and then with salt and pepper. But they don't cook theirs. They only roast it until it is ready. And then they just mix it in palm oil. So there are a lot of different dishes across the various ethnic groups, and the cooking methods too differ when the same ethnic groups have the same traditional dish.
Yes, sir. Just related to this only, another candidate was asking, are there any specific cooking methods unique to traditional African cuisine? So if you can
Yes,
put
we
your
have
response
there
later.
is smoking, which is a unique method. There is smoking, there is baking in the leaf. There are some foods that they tie in the leaf and they don't cook in the pot. They bake it in the fire. That is, they make the fire, and when there is a hot coal, they now open the hot coal and they place the food inside the hot coal and they cover it and it cooks in that leaf. So we have smoking and baking in the leaf, which are some unique traditional cooking methods for some particular foods.
Yes, sir. So before we take your last words, there's a very interesting question. And it is like, what is a fun or surprising fact about Cameroon that most people don't know?
It's a technical question because what may be fun or surprising for some person from India may not be fun or surprising for somebody from Germany. But I think one of the fun or surprising fact about Cameroon that most people don't know is that Cameroon is Africa in miniature. That's a surprising fact, Africa in miniature. So, and I think that is one of the reasons why we have a lot of ethnic groups. Only Cameroon alone has more than 150 ethnic groups. And that is the surprising fact. The surprising fact in this ethnic group is that is why we can say that Cameroon is the way it is, because of these numerous ethnic groups with diverse culture. Cameroon has just so much diverse culture. And one funniest thing about Cameroon is that in Cameroon, is it even really funny? In Cameroon, we have just a lot of diverse cuisines, a lot, just a lot.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, just to wrap up, like, what would be your last words before we bid you vote of thanks about the topic, about anything you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would like to say, first of all, appreciate all of us who have been here for this session. It was a pleasure sharing with all of us. And as far as this topic is concerned, I think what we have just looked at is a tip of the iceberg. There is more to traditional cuisine in Africa. If we have to take each region by region, I think it will be a whole course. And so our enjoiners, especially those who are out of Africa and who look forward to coming to Africa sometime to try and understand maybe some of the traditional recipes in some of the countries that they will wish to visit, so that when they come, they can get used to them, taste them, and understand why and how Africa is really so diverse in its traditional cuisine. And thank you once more, Women Ascension. Thank you, Tamina. Thank you, Sophia, for the opportunity to share this knowledge with all of us.
Thank you so much, sir, for like sparing your time to convey your learnings or with experience in such a concise way. And I do agree that it is very short time to discuss about this, and Africa is something that is known for its versatility of the, especially the plants, as per my knowledge, right? So thank you a lot, sir, for telling things. And I really liked the fact that you have conveyed, that it is just not about the versatility of things you have, it is about how it is made. Especially it was a big reminder for me on personal note that the modern cooking techniques uh, are not that effective in giving us all the connectedness and nutrition from the food. And the slow cooking is a reminder which we are usually forgetting nowadays. And that was a learning point for me for this session. And thank you a lot, sir, for sparing your time once again on behalf of Whole Woman Ascension. And we would be pleased to know more about the traditional and the non-traditional cuisines of your country in near future sessions. And thank you a lot, sir.